Hello everyone. So we are discussing about the sequence diagram, and in the last part we discussed about what is sequence diagram and what is the importance of sequence diagram, right? And today we will talk about the elements of the sequence diagram. Just like in DFD we have different shapes, right? And we use all the shapes to design the DFD. In use case we have different symbols like actor, use case, lines. So all these are nothing but the elements which we require to draw one particular UML. So to draw the sequence diagram, here we have 6 different elements which we can use. The first one is the lifeline, then messages, then activations, guards, combined fragments, and objects. In the combined fragments, we have 3 different options. It can be alternative, it can be options, it can be loops. And 4 different types of objects we have. Your object can be an actor, it can be the boundary, it can be the controller, and it can be the entity. It can be anything, any 4 from this 4, any object, there can be any one object. So these are the different elements. We will understand all these elements in one example. Also we'll see what is the symbol for each elements. So very first we will start with the objects. So different objects we have. So first let's start with this objects. So see, okay, so different objects here we have. Basically when we draw the object, we draw the, just a minute. So when we draw the object, very first we can use the rectangle box, right? This is your object. This object can be anything. Suppose you don't know, or suppose it is not clear that what symbol you can use, you can simply draw the rectangle. But suppose you know the actual actor, actual object. If it's a human being, then you can draw this symbol, right? This symbol you can draw. Boundary. What is the meaning of boundary? Boundary is nothing but the your actual logic, where we say the interface or the GUI, right? So this is something related with the user. Boundary is related with the GUI. And entity is nothing but the related with the database, right? So these are the objects which you can use. And the last one is the control. Control is something where you put some certain restrictions, right? So if it is required, then you can use the control. We will see all these things, but just keep in mind that whenever you need to show the object, you can use either this or this or this or this symbols, or also you can draw the simple rectangle, right? So this is about the objects. If you see here, its lifeline is mentioned, that we will discuss in the example. So we are done with the objects. Now we will see different other elements. So see, here we have an example. Right now I'm not going to explain how to draw the sequence diagram. I'm just making you familiar with the different elements, that what is the actual element and what is the symbol for that, right? So first let's say the lifeline. The first is the lifeline. Let me clear all the things. Okay, so very first we will start with the lifeline. So here, see, when you draw the object, and at that moment you start the dashed line. If you see, this is dashed line. This dashed line is nothing but the lifeline. The meaning of the lifeline is, see, actually this should be here. This arrow should be here. The meaning of the lifeline is for how much time this particular object remain present in the system. When you perform the operation, one particular operation, it might be possible that certain object has certain time period, that we call the lifeline. Lifeline means the moment you activate that object and the moment it gets over, or there is no any job from that object, that we call the lifeline, right? So this is about the lifeline, and lifeline we denote with the dashed line, right? If you observe this thing, that these objects have come into the picture at the very beginning of the process, but certain objects, for example this object, has come at very later stage, so its lifeline starts from here, right? So this is about the lifeline. Now the second is the messages. Messages means what? When you send a message to the system, or when we talk to the objects, right? At that time we need to send the message to the another object, like you need to do prompt the message, give the notification, what actually we are doing. And for that we have a message. For that we have a message element. To write the message, we use a single solid line arrowed solid line, and we write the name of the message, that what you are going to do or what you are trying to tell to another object. Here what we are going to do, we are saying make reservation, right? So this is my message, and if it's a first process, just mention 1 and colon. If it's in a continuation, then you can write, because see, till the time I will not get the reservation done, till that time I'll have a 1.1, then 1.1.1, like that. So this is my first process. So make reservation. Okay, I'm just sending this message from this place to this process, and because this is the second stage, means second object, then we have write 1.1. So here you can see different messages. So this is also message 1 from one object to one. Suppose that object is telling something to itself, like repetition or kind of that. In that we call it a self message, and to show the self message we use this type of arrow. Self message, we call it a self message, and the other thing like naming formation will remain same, right? Another is this type of message, dashed. When we say that something is giving confirmation or acknowledgement, we call it the message. So normal message, then here we are creating the message. And suppose there is a return message, if someone is returning something, for example, if it is returning something, we can also draw line this way. So ultimately the arrow line, solid and dashed, both are used to write the message. And when we write the message, do not forget to write the numbers. So this is the naming rules for the message. Okay, the next we have the activation. What is the meaning of activation? The activation means what? That we can see that this object, this Windows UI object, is there in the system till this point, right? But it is not always necessary that this object remains active all the time throughout the process. It is not always necessary that it remains active all the time, but the time duration for which it remains active, we show it through the activation line, and that activation line is nothing but one vertical solid bar. As you can see, it is vertical solid bar. It shows the activation. Means that yes, this object is a part of the system. lifeline is there means it is there inside the system, but when it gets activated, that point and when it gets deactivated, so in between this we call it the activation, right? So you can see that this has only this much of activation period, this has this much of activation period. So activation is nothing but the vertical solid bar, right? So this is activation. Then we have the guards and combined fragments that we will see in the next session. So lifeline, message and activations and objects we have discussed in this part. Guards and combined fragments we'll see in the next part.